First of all, I would like to greet my panelists, Dr. Melissa Reyes, Dr. Caridad Taroja, and Dr. Ron Resurrection, and to my mentor and thesis advisor, Dr. Madeline Santa Maria. For today, I will be presenting to you my final thesis entitled Stressful Life Events, Daily Hassles and Depressive Symptoms, the Moderating Role of Sense of Coherence. I am Jomar V. Sayaman, an MS Clinical Psychology student. I started this research by having an idea that I want to know more about depression. Depression is one of the most common mental health illness around the world and in the Philippines. In addition to that, this becomes more prevalent and common during this COVID-19 pandemic. Together with anxiety, depression seemed to be increasing during this time of pandemic due to various factors. So, what caught my interest and what makes me passionate about depression is to look for possible factors that occur more frequently during this time and that are that can cause distress to people when experienced during this time. So, just to make everything short, I was able to identify the different kinds of events. The major life events, which includes stressful life events, minor life events, which is daily hassles. I became more interested on how those events predict depression. However, the reality is not all people who experience stressful situations eventually lead to depression. That makes me interested on the possible protective factor and the possible moderators. I was able to found social support, resiliency, coping, but evidences about its mechanism have already well documented. So, upon searching, I was able to find sense of coherence as the possible moderators. It has been seen to be a protective factor against the adverse mental health consequences of stress. So, I became more interested into that. That's why my theory was anchored to that uh, theory or the model of Antonovsky. The salutogenesis model's major assumption is that when a person has a strong sense of coherence, it will prevent the negative consequences of stress. So if a person experiences major stress, it will not eventually lead to mental health consequences or different health consequences. But if a person has weak sense of coherence, and has experienced a lot of stresses, it may possibly lead to depressive symptoms or other mental health issues. So I want to present to you the results of my statistical analysis. With regard to the descriptive statistics and correlation, sense of coherence was expectedly found to be related to its three dimensions: the manageability, meaningfulness, and comprehensibility, and also with stressful life events and age. Stressful life events, on the other hand, was found not to be related with the depressive symptoms and daily hassles. In addition to that, depressive symptoms is related to daily hassles and age. With regards to the moderation analysis, stressful life events as the predictor, depressive symptoms as the criterion, I tested the possible moderating influence of sense of coherence in its three dimensions. However, there's no direct effects or moderation occurred among the four models. In the next moderation analysis, I tested daily hassles as the predictor, depressive symptoms as the criterion, sense of coherence and its three dimensions as the moderators. Daily hassles do predict depressive symptoms, but the relationship was not moderated by sense of coherence and its three dimensions. There are many factors that have accounted for these results. With regards to the direct relationship between stressful life events and depressive symptoms, I found out that the extent of the relationship between stressful life events and depressive symptoms could also be due to the duration of the events. That's why it is better to consider the duration of events experienced by a person. Another factor is inaccuracy of responses. Since college participants, are asked to remember those major life events occurred within a year, there is a possibility that they will forget some of the events occurred within that 1 year period. And also, since this is a sensitive topic, maybe some of the participants may not be willing to share their experiences. Another one is that the major life events. There are many studies that have found that dependent events, or those events as a result of personal experiences, to predict depressive symptoms more than the independent variables. And lastly, since my study used checklist, Kessler thinks that it is not appropriate. That with regards to the methods, it is better to use contextual methods such as those who experience emotional abuse, physical abuse, bullying, and many more. With regards to the direct relationship between daily hazards and depressive symptoms, the findings of the study is consistent with the literatures. According to Rogers, depressed participants experience more daily hassles compared to non-depressed participants. And since my research participants include college students, they've experienced a lot more factors or daily hassles, such as those related to their studies. And with regards to the moderation effect of sense of coherence between the relationship of stressful life events and depressive symptoms, no known moderation effect has been found. Since we are in this pandemic, I think, and I was able to found that fear of COVID could be the potential variable that could have played a confounding variable in the study. There are several studies that have searched for the possible effect of fear of COVID on sense of coherence and depressive symptoms. And the relationship or the findings is mixed. Fear of COVID says that it has a potential benefit to the sense of coherence. On the other hand, it has no potential benefits to the depressive symptoms. According to this study that I was able to read, when a when a person experience a strong fear of contracting the COVID virus, they they are forced to follow the health protocols. And because of that, they perceive that the health following health protocols is reasonable and meaningful to them. And with regards to this, we can say that this is a manifestation of sense of coherence. And according to the researchers also, that if a person experience weak or low fear of COVID, they think that following health protocols is not meaningful and is not unreasonable. And also unreasonable. And this reflects the low sense of coherence. However, many studies have found that when a person experiences a lot of fear of COVID or high levels of fear of COVID, they tend to experience depressive symptoms. That's why in this study, I considered fear of COVID as one major factor in the findings. Another one, since the pandemic, everyone has is restricted to go somewhere else and to hang out with friends. So social networks and social support has significantly diminished or decreased. And because of that, people who are experiencing problems are not able to find enough and sufficient social support. That is why in this study, I think that it is important to have a sufficient social support so that when someone experience a lot of stressful life events, it will not eventually lead to depressive symptoms. That's why I suggest that in future researchers who will undergo similar interests to mine, that they should consider fear of COVID and social support as the moderating variables. With regards to sense of coherence as the moderator between the relationship of daily hassles and depressive symptoms, I also found that sense of coherence did significantly play an important role. That a sense of coherence as the source of resilience and coping among college students, it failed to sufficiently protect them against the onset of depressive symptoms due to chronic or daily stressors. So when a person has low source of resilience, such as sense of coherence, it is important that sense of social support should compensate for that low level of resiliency or sense of coherence. That's why I think that sense social support is important during this kind of circumstances. And since we all experience a lot of daily stressors and daily challenges, it literally affects our physical, cognitive, and spiritual social health. Due to the contagiousness, increased mortality rates we heard from the news, unpredictability, and absence of cure. And because of that, we tend to experience repetitive and disturbing ways of thinking, which is commonly referred to as rumination. In my study, I consider rumination as one of the most important factor that plays a significant possible moderating relationship between daily hassles and depressive symptoms. That could be because a person experience chronic and most of the time this kind of stress. That's why they ruminate more often. And rumination has been found to be prevalent during this time of crisis. If a person managed their ruminative thoughts, if they failed to manage their ruminative thoughts, it will not be replaced by positive thoughts and will eventually lead to fatigue. And fatigue can cause a depletion of psychological resources, which can lead depression. And this is how the rumination leads to depressive symptoms, according to my findings. In conclusion, the present study shows that stressful life events did not predict depressive symptoms among college students, and relationship of these two variables was not moderated by sense of coherence and its three dimensions. The results emphasize the essential role of the context and types of stressful life events in its effects on levels of depressive symptoms. Additionally, the absence of moderating effect of sense of coherence or SOC could probably be confounded by the influence of fear of COVID and social support. Furthermore, daily hassles predict depressive symptoms among college students. However, it is not moderated by a sense of coherence, including its three dimensions. The findings also consider the current COVID-19 pandemic situation as the solely confounding variable of the study. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, social networks diminished and rumination becomes prevalent, which could probably the result of the relationship between daily hassles and depressive symptoms. With this, the present findings suggest future researchers interested in this topic to consider the various factors that probably play an essential role in the study of stressors and depressive symptoms. And that's all with my presentations. And thank you very much for listening.